Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who review, episode number 81. No DVD this time. We're not talking about a new serial for the series, a serial that I've watched. We're discussing an audio drama. Yep, I have never discussed this before, but I decided to discuss these ones. Now, this is the first of 275 of these. These will come whenever I can finish listening to them, and these will come alongside with the main serials when I review them, or at least something else for the review for this series, but they'll be part of these reviews. As for the novels and comics, the trades, those are for the comic corners. The novels, those I will review whenever I have a chance to resume reading those again. I do own like one or two of them. I might review them at some point, but not right now. But I'm moving those here I'm moving away from the reviews for novels, because I have not brought back this series in a long time. So you might be curious, though, if you had been watching my YouTube channel for a long time, what happened to the reviews, what happened to the novel reviews and the movie reviews. Well, in the case of novel reviews, that one is current hiatus until I read another non-light novel until, well, at that point, that's when I resume them. In the case of movie reviews, this will come out whenever I feel like it. There's no set schedule for these ones. If I get a chance to watch a movie, I probably will be discussing it. It depends. If it's not anime related, or at some point I probably might discuss it, but who knows. But here we're discussing the very first audio drama, Sirens of Time, released back in... I want to be sure I get the correct date for this one. This is a 4-episode story, which I have listened to in 13 parts. This was released in July of 1999. It is written and directed by Nicholas Briggs, who is the voice of Daleks. I had heard, when I read online, apparently this was supposed to be featured Daleks, but couldn't get it in time. So we made this a multi-Doctor story. We make this as the first multi-Doctor story in Doctor Who. In the media like this, is probably 2 Doctors. Who Doctor continue with the story? 5th, 6th, and 7th. Who reprised the roles in the series, being Peter Davison reprised his role as 5th Doctor, Colin Baker as 6th Doctor, and Spencer McCoy as the 7th Doctor. The first 3 episodes of this 4-parter focus on each different Doctors. Episode 1 focus on number 7, number 2 focus on 5, number 3 focuses on number 6, and 4 is their team episode. Number 7 basically starts off in Gallifrey, where we have somebody from the Celestial Intervention Agency, and there's a crisis going on with this Knights of Verdania, who are attacking Gallifrey for reasons not fairly explained here. And, they're basically, surrounding the planet, not attacking just yet. There's discrepancy in time scheme, and it all involves the Doctor. Cut to the Spencer McCoy Doctor, where he lands on this unknown planet, and by the end of the story, we do not know the name of this planet. It just basically, this planet's got a barrier on it. Apparently, it's a prison planet, and it has only 1 prisoner on it. A former knight for this particular order, who's a very old man, implying on chubby. So we have a Doctor. By the way, it's pure darkness in the place. You see, there's probably a little bit of light here and there, and then mostly, but he hears somebody crying and crying out, and it turns out it's a woman who's sinking in quicksand. Doctor sees some weirdo coon, so he asks her for help. She's like, yeah, she's weird. She's only in this one, and she pops up again in 4, and her name is Ruthie, and she does nothing in this story. That's the honest thing about this one. She does nothing aside from the fact she's trying to influence the plot here. So, Doctor chooses a girl named Ellie, part of a geology trip where a ship crashed, and then they go to this hut where they're attacked by these assassins who are sent there to kill this old man who turns out to be a former knight. Basically a former war criminal. Apparently he cannot move, his legs cannot move. He basically had to crawl from his bedroom to figure out what the heck is going on, because Ruthie took away his wheelchair. So it was a joke Yeah, he's like, I feed you, I bathe you. And he's like, you forget you wipe my bottom. Okay, that I found to be a little funny. Just a tiny bit funny, but yeah, so basically it's his nurse. And apparently she's got this technology where he's like, his house is like so tiny. And eventually put like, his death is like averted, and then the doctor is like swooped off. By the way, they try to go inside TARDIS, but TARDIS is closed off here. Why is it closed off? This is one thing never explained in the story, and eventually he gets swooped off to someplace. And it's like, oh, we made contact with Doctor, who's on this boat, which gets sunk by a U-boat during World War I. 1915, he meets another. We have Fifth Doctor meet a woman who turns her name is Helen. She's told like, oh, there's a time discrepancy. Then of course, so back to his TARDIS, he tries to, but for some reason it's locked. Yes, this is actually one thing never explained in the story. Still, like I mentioned, ship sinks, and then of course they think it's a crate. It's actually a TARDIS, where they picked up by U-boat captain, and Doctor tries to. Well, Doctor can understand what he's saying because he's a doctor. He can translate anything he wants. The girl who's with him, who apparently is like a sailor, she of course, at least like a nurse, whatever, and she has no idea what the heck is going on. So the next professor is a spy, and of course it's snake that ship. Then of course you can try and convince the ship around to go retrieve his crate, aka his TARDIS, and eventually he has to use. Eventually, the Celestial Vengeance had to basically possess one of the officers in order to try to kill the Doctor for reasons. And eventually he's able to use a gun to turn the ship around. For instance, of this particular ship, though it's later explained that there's a criminal on the ship that has to die because apparently, this is revealed in episode 4, if the ship doesn't sink, then he kills the guy who invents penicillin and prevents Earth from going to space because of an outbreak in 1956. Yep. So, yeah. Then, of course, like, oh, we made contact with Sixth Doctor. Oh, crap, basically, the guy's murdered, along with the California president, by these knights. And then we see the Sixth Doctor, and he's on, like, a ship, where he just, like, he pretends to be a delegate for whatever this thing is going on here. Like, oh, there's stuff going on, and eventually, like, oh, look at this terminal, like, what the heck is going on? And they'll keep it down. And in this time, this company opens up and kills everybody on board. Now, this something is never, this is by far the weirdest part of the story. Now, I gotta admit, Lenz Baker is fantastic in the story. He does a fantastic job here. Do not know who's companion the story is because, at least in the case of Peter Davison's Doctor, it's Tegan and Turlough. So my guess is probably takes place, well, definitely before those two left, and probably between one of the stories these two were just featured in. Which one? Don't know. So, as the case 7 Doctor, my guess is it's him by himself, but it could be Ace is not mentioned in the story at all, so this is maybe during a time where he's by himself before he gets another companion. Because, from what I've heard, he does get more companions even after Ace leaves. So, there's that. So, what is, like, the whole thing going on here? Eventually, the whole crew was killed, except for the Doctor, this waitress, named Helen, same name as first two, and an android. And eventually, they kill some creatures to get some test samples, and someone don't release this particular creature. And then, of course, basically, Doctor's swooped off, and then he meets up with his other selves. And they all compare notes. We did the whole mental contact thing first, how this has been seen probably at this point. With the exception of 8 Doctors, this is probably the first time seen I can think of since 5 Doctors. It's like, oh, there's this creature, we have to unleash it, but we have this knight here who's trying to prevent it, and it turns out, yeah, this actually is Helen from all 3 timelines. The reason? She's a Siren of Time. Okay? Yes. So, it hits around, I think it's presumably Gallifrey, and at least actually on the ship. They get lower levels, and Fifth Doctor's captured, but he's later freed. They release the creature, and everything restored back to normal. The ship sinks. The guy who's supposed to get killed gets killed off there. They still in the planet. Six Doctor, don't know what the heck he was up to. It's almost like he was like, his whole story was written like last minute. It's like, oh, let's have the Sixth Doctor participate in this conference. I'm like, okay. At least in the case of Four, that he actually had an adventure going on. Six is like, oh, we have this conference going on, exploding. It's a minor thing here. I kind of feel as though Sixth Doctor, he had virtually not much to do in this story. I do like his dialogue. I do appreciate that. And I thought it was a really good story. Despite the fact I felt as though the his one didn't... I would say of the 4 episodes, 3 is the weakest one. Despite the fact that it kind of leads into the big team-up. And of course, the Doctors go straight to the plan for the first episode. The girl, who is actually the Siren of Time, they've been her being saved, and then they presumably go back in their own TARDISes, and they all disappear. Go back to what they're doing. And that's the story in a nutshell. It's a good story, great start off for this 275 story run. And I will come back to this one. Now, next audio drama we'll be discussing, well, when I get a chance to listen to it, will be the second ever one and focus on the Fifth Doctor. Is it a solo one? I don't think so. No, it is not, because it's Eterlo in there. Yeah, so next one they actually do have a set time when it's set. I'm not sure in the case of Sirens, they don't have a note for that one. At what point any of these timelines here? Just okay. So Sixth Doctor had Evelyn Smith. So it's an old lady. And she does make many appearances. Not really. Yeah. Oh, by the way, this is part of the main range stories, which started back in this very one, and it concludes on March 16th, 2001, with the 275th story. So apparently, like, they ended so they could have their own separate thing. Like, there's one for Fifth Doctor, which is not really a lot for him per se. There's also one for Sixth and Seventh. Basically, all the classic Doctors get their own stories here. And the first one that got this was Eighth Doctor. Yeah, he was the first one to get his own spin-offs. Yep. I'll be listening to those eventually, but I want to get through the main range ones first. Got a while to go, but yeah. Well, I kind of wish basically I got more companions here. Yeah, I tried listening to this on Spotify, but it didn't. They had these shuffle for some reason. I don't know why, so I had to listen to this on, well, not getting the website. So there's that. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this particular. Oh, by the way, if you're curious about the runtime for this one, it is 2 hours and 6 minutes. That's how long this thing is. Yeah. So yeah, that's that particular view. Oh, by the way, this is a guy named Venzel. And this was his first appearance. He appears a handful of times. Next time he appears is in the Apocalypse Element, which is a Sixth Doctor story. Yep. We also have the Sirens of Time, which I think this was their... They appeared a few stories. Appeared in this one, Lie in Ruin, Sacrifice of Joe Grant, Adventure Possibility, and Collision Course. Appeared a few times. Not much. But yeah, absolute fun story. I love it. Okay, so that's a particular view. Next up is Back to Kamen Rider for 4 episodes and a movie. Yep. Next view. Bye.